Hey y'all, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. This is 3Strand Tech, and very happy to be here with you today. So we are coming back with our Cisco Packet Tracer tutorials and walkthroughs as we explore this wonderful program. So today, if you haven't actually installed Packet Tracer, you want to see my previous video, but we're going to talk about this tool here, which is called Select, and we're also going to talk about the Delete and also the Note functionality. So that's Select right there. That's Delete. And the next one, 2 spaces over, is going to be the Note tool, which I'll show in just a moment. So with Select, that allows you to select a network item, just like that router we've got right there, and it allows you to drag it around the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. You can do that by hitting CTRL or Control plus next to your backspace, and that will let the workspace be a little bit bigger, so that way you can see it, especially if you're watching this on a mobile device. And then obviously in the bottom left there, we're adding a computer, and this is just an example of the functionality of the Select tool. That is a printer right there. So just showing how to move network elements in the workspace. So I select the Select option in the upper left, and now I can grab and drag and drop. And the same thing goes for network cables. You see there, I can just connect that to the router and pull it over to the PC as follows. So it's very, very easy to use this program to move things around. And there you see the delete option there in the upper left. I just hovered over. And also notice you can actually hit the delete key on your keyboard, and that will actually enable. Notice how my cursor just changed to that crosshairs right there, so that when you click on it, the program will say, hey, do you want to delete this? And you go ahead and delete it. And then obviously you can do that on any element that is in the workspace. So right there, that allows us to delete whatever we need to. And then to switch back to the Select option, notice when you hover over each item, there's the Note option. Notice there's a keyboard shortcut right next to it. So for Note there, it's parentheses N, and then all these other tools, of course, have their parentheses hotkeys. So that'll help you with your workflow in making your activities just a little bit quicker, a little bit more streamlined, so that it doesn't take too much time. So there is the Note option. Really love the Note option because it lets you just add a text box and you can type in whatever option you'd like. So you can label your network elements, put any notes about the activity, especially if you're sharing this file with somebody else. It's very easy to do that. This is a great program for sharing your networking experiments and those types of things so that other people can take a look at them. See, I just typed in hello world, and when the Select tool is enabled, you can actually click and drag this element as well, like any other, just by clicking and holding on your mouse. And of course, if you want to delete, I just hit the delete key right there while it's highlighted. While it's highlighted, it's going to show in red, and while it's not highlighted, it'll show in black, the text I mean. And so you can actually delete this out of your workspace just as easily. So just a quick tutorial there of some basic functions of Packet Tracer. And there I go, just showing you how to use the delete option there. Now the delete option is still selected, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Sorry for the blurry nature of the video. We're going to start off by saving our Packet Tracer program, so that way we can come back to it, because we'll probably refer back to this in future videos. I'm not sure how many. So you'll want to hit File and then Save As, and that will bring up the Save dialog box. You can also do, I believe it's Control-Shift-S, I believe that is as well. So that will allow you to save. Just look at the option next to File, Save As when you have that menu, and it'll show you the shortcut. Pretty sure it's Control-Shift-S. So here I've got a new folder made, so I'm going to just call it Packet Tracer Tutorials. I've got other stuff in the other Packet Tracer folder that I use for my own personal things. So here, I'm just going to call this file Network Setup, and then the file type, you can just leave it as it is, of course, because we want it to be a Packet Tracer file. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now our file is saved, and it will allow us to save very quickly next time we need to. So here we're just going to start off. So this is these are the network elements. Those are routers. Those are switches. And then the other thing we're going to take a look at today will be hubs, but there's also end devices, components, connections, which are like cables, and then miscellaneous. Then this last one here in the end is actually a multi-user remote network. So something like that you can experiment with. We're just going to start with network devices, and we're going to go ahead and drag a switch. We're going to go ahead and grab that. Obviously, you can do Control-Alt-R to use your keyboard shortcut to select those items. So very, very useful features, of course, with those keyboard shortcuts. But we're going to click on the switch element, which is just to the right of the router here on the bottom left. And we're going to go ahead and select the first switch, which here is going to be the 2960 on my screen. If you're looking at this and it's not 2024, if it's a future year, probably going to be using a different switch model, but they all work the same way. It's just that Cisco updates them from time to time with new software releases. So then we're going to go over to the hub option, and we're going to pull up the hub. And then the next thing we're going to need to add are some devices that can use the switch and use the hub, which in this case, of course, will be PCs. We're going to go ahead and drag these PCs into position. And that way we can get a nice setup. Again, if you want to zoom in, you just do Control and the plus symbol, which should be right next to your backspace key. And thanks for your patience as I go ahead and get these PCs in position. So we're just setting them up together in a little kind of a square orientation just for ease of viewing. And the network we're actually going to focus on for the duration of these tutorials is going to be on the left. But this is a worthy lesson just to talk about hubs versus switches. Of course, you can get a hold of any theory book on networking, such as maybe one from Cisco. I don't work with them, or they're not endorsing or sponsoring me saying this. This is just a personal recommendation. And then you want to click on the connections options there in the bottom. Straight through cable's fine. Switches actually auto adjust whether it's a straight through or a crossover cable. So it doesn't matter which one you use these days. Any of the modern switches will automatically adjust. And obviously we're going to go ahead and connect this hub using the fast Ethernet options. Want to make sure we use Ethernet, not USB. So we're just going all the way through there. And the green pyramids or triangles that you're seeing here is the status of the connection between each computer and the hub or the switch. Obviously on the left side the switch is showing that the pyramids are connecting and talking. Now they're all set up. Now you go to the options preferences. The show device model labels and the device name labels, they're on by default, so you didn't see them on mine. On your end, they will be. They kind of get in the way, in my opinion. I like to label everything myself, so I usually turn those options off. I'll have them turned off for these tutorials, but you can put them on if you want to. That's partially why we're talking about the note option, because the note option allows us to put our own notes so that we can have a nice clean label all set up. So here at the top, if you do N or click on the note option at the top left, we're going to pretend that we're in business, that we've got a business of our own. You can put whatever business you want in yours. For mine, I am choosing Elijah Flour and Oil LLC. That's the name of my fictional company here. And now we're just going to put that at the top, and that's going to kind of be the title of the network. So Elijah Flour and Oil LLC, come up with your own fun name. And then I'm going to name each one of these computers. I wanted to name them something fun. A lot of people might even say just use the naming conventions in Packet Tracer, such as PC1, PC2. That's fine. I wanted to be a little bit creative, so I went ahead and decided to use the little bit more of a naming convention with a name that starts with an A for the first one. So I chose Alex, and then Brett for B. That's the second machine, and then Corey, C, third letter of the alphabet. You see what I'm doing here. So then we've got David right there, and then that'll be the names of our PCs. And then on the right side, you can do the same thing if you want. We're not going to use that network on the right very much after this video, so you can just leave those as they are. Then we're going to go ahead and label the IP addresses, which we'll set up in a second. I'm going to use the 192.168 private address range. We're going to use a /24 subnet mask. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the note and then type that in. This doesn't set the settings for the PCs. This is just a label for our reference. So that way we won't have to switch between the windows for the PCs left and right. It's going to be right there on the screen just for ease of use. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll this down just a little bit so that I can have an easier time just showing this to you so that way you can easily see them. So I'm going to go ahead and do the 192.168.1.3 because it's the third machine. Now this numbering convention, typically you use like the first 5 IP addresses. A lot of companies do, not all of them I'm sure, but usually you want to do the first 5 to reserve them for such as like servers or routers or even the switch itself. So we're going to go ahead and just use this convention just because we're messing around. It's a totally fine IP address range to use for this example. So I'm just kind of moving everything around so you can see it okay. I don't want anything cut off. So we're going to go ahead now. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste really quick. And, well, maybe not exactly copy and paste, but just type in just the same names. I'm not going to label everything exactly on the other side because, of course, we're not going to use the hub network every time. So I just went ahead and deleted that one and decided we'll just go ahead and copy and paste the IP addresses instead and just do it that way. So I'm just going to double click on the text and then just do Control-C to go ahead and then copy the IP addresses and then carry them over, so you can do that at your leisure. And it's just really easy and really convenient that we're able to use this program however you want, as you can see here. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in the next IP address, the .2, actually copying and pasting from Brett, and then also from Corey. And if you have any specific questions about this program or certain things that you'd want to suggest to me that I look into, please let me know. I'm a student just like you are, so just trying to learn this program right alongside you. I just thought I would share what I'm up to because it might help some people. So that's the whole name of the game, is just trying to help others. So I've got the last IP address just copied and pasted for David over on this side. And now we've got a really good workspace set up with all of our notes and the IP addresses and those types of things. So now let's talk about hubs and switches after I label the switch. Forgot to label the switch. I'm just going to call switch alpha. See the A? You know, if I had another switch, I'd probably do switch beta and so forth. So taking a look here as I zoom in, the hub is the device on the right side and the switch is over on the left. And we're also going to go ahead and now we actually have to configure the PCs directly. So Alex is showing up as PC1 on the PC itself. We're going to go ahead and change it to Alex. And then we're also going to set the IP address manually. And we're going to set it here to a static IP. We want to make sure it's shown up for the IPv4. So obviously Alex's is 192.168.1.1. And then when you hit tab, it automatically fills in the subnet mask, which is the /24. So that is going to sit there. And obviously we've got that set up. So notice in the window now it says Alex, so that when we need to switch between windows, we can look and it'll say Alex instead of PC1. That way we'll be able to keep everything straight. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the other PCs. We're going to go ahead and label the .2, the .3, and the .4 for Brett, Corey, and David. And we're going to do the same thing for the PCs on the right side. So it's pretty much just rinse and repeat. I'm doing the same thing here for Brett. And then we're going to go to fast Ethernet 0. And we're going to punch in the IP address right there. So very simple, very easy. And then tab, and then the subnet mask is right there. And of course the subnet mask is what allows or enables the machines to really speak to each other. It lets them know which subnet they're on so that the IP addresses are much more efficiently allocated, as you've probably discovered from your own studies. Now we're just putting in the IP address for Corey. Just wanted to zoom in so you could see it. Got the subnet work on David's as well. Very, very nice. Very easy. And of course the other good thing about Packet Tracer is that if anything screws up, you can go ahead and you can adjust it. You can undo. You can start over. That type of thing. Really good opportunity to make and break things without it harming a production network. So very, very, very cool. for those types of things that you may be learning. So David is all set. Now we've got Alex. We're just double checking. It's always good to double check your work. So now we've got David and Alex up there, and then we'll go ahead and pull up Brett and Corey to make sure everything looks good. And those windows will be coming up in a second. By the way, if you hold down Alt-Tab, it'll actually pull up a switching option. There's Corey. On my screen, it's actually showing up on the other side for the tab switching, the Alt-Tab switching. So this is a really good option to quickly switch between windows as we work on them. So you see now I've got these all pulled up, and because we've got the IP addresses already displayed on the notes, we don't have to switch between windows left and right. We can just look there for reference. So now you see we've got a hub on the right side. I'm going to go ahead and label it as hub, of course, so that way it's properly labeled. I will put everything in position. So now we've got the hub and the switch. Now you see the switch has a lot more connections on it versus the hub. So as I swing over to the hub, it's got a lot less. So hubs are really old, plain and simple. Back in the early 90s, or even before that, hubs were used in a lot of workplaces. And the problem with hubs is they're not very smart. All they are is a repeater. They go ahead and they push whatever frames are sent to them out to every machine on the network. So they don't have any smarts. They just go ahead and rebroadcast everything, which is not very useful, of course, because the problem is that if two of these computers try and speak to each other at the same time, we could have a collision. And so as the collision happens, now all the computers have to back off, they have to stop communicating, and then they have to wait before they can communicate again. And just for ease of use, I went ahead and dragged the names over. And so if Alex wanted to talk to David, and Alex sent out a frame on the network, the hub is going to blast that frame all over the place. It's going to blast it to Corey, David, and Brett, but it's not going to go send the frame back out to Alex because that's where the frame came from. So the hub at least knows to do that. But it obviously goes all over the place to the rest of the network, even the part of the network that doesn't actually need the frames. Now obviously the computers on the receiving end, they can tell that the frames are not intended for them. So then what do the machines do? They drop the frames. They don't even recognize them. But in this case, David would recognize that the frame was intended for him. And so David responds with, "Yep, I'm here, Alex. What is it you'd like to say, or what do you have for me?" And therefore they can communicate. But it's really not efficient, once again, because with networks involving a hub, it involves what's called a single collision domain. And the problem with a single collision domain is, well, the collisions. Because when the collisions happen, all the communication has to stop, and it just makes working on the computer a lot harder because the computer takes so long to actually get the message through because the frames are colliding so much. And just imagine, like, if you're having a conversation, trying to have a private conversation between you and somebody else, you don't want other people hearing it, especially if other people are trying to have their own conversation. Nobody can hear each other. So that ends up being the big problem with hubs, is because they just blast the frames all over the place, and it's just not a very good way to get done. And that is where the switch actually is very, very helpful, because on the other side of things over here on the left, which will be primarily what we'll use as far as our network goes, is that the switch actually has a lot of brains. Literally it does. It actually has a concept, or a technology, I suppose you could call it, a system called a routing table. So on the inside of the switch, there on the left side, the switch actually has the ability to store the IP addresses, or more specifically the MAC addresses, of the other computers on the network. And so for each individual connection on that switch, so for all the ports, whether it's a 24-port switch, an 18-port switch, and I'm going to go ahead and drag the names over here so that they're all on the same side, so for ease of use. So each port on this switch on the left side here has its own collision domain, and you can see, again, all of the connections there on the left side. So what that means when each port is its own collision domain, it's that everybody can talk to everybody and at the same time, and they don't have to worry about collisions. The switch kind of works as like a traffic director. Imagine a police officer at a stoplight, and the police officer directs traffic. The switch is the police officer. So in this example, again, if Alex wanted to communicate with David, the first frame that Alex sends out is going to be a broadcast frame. So all the computers in the network are going to get it. But of course, Brett and Corey in this case are going to drop the frame because it's not for them. David's going to say, yes, Alex, I'm who you're looking for. Let's talk. But what the switch does is the switch remembers, oh, Brett is over on this cable in the upper right. Corey is in the bottom left. David's on the bottom right, or whatever the MAC address corresponds to on the ports. So the next time Alex and David want to talk, as a matter of fact, next time anyone wants to talk to anyone else, the switch is only going to send the frame to the intended recipient. It's not going to just blast everything out everywhere, because then we would have collisions. We would have a slowdown in communication. Not what we would like to have. So the switch, by comparison, is much more efficient. It allows for faster communication, streamlined communication, and it functions in full duplex. So full duplex means that you can send and receive messages at the same time. Something we humans can't do, obviously. We can't talk and listen at the same time, but computers can. So every single one of those connections you see right there can talk and can listen all at the same time for much faster and much better communications. So we're going to go ahead and do some labs here in the next few videos, just examples of how to set up machines, of how to troubleshoot machines. I'll think up some hypothetical scenarios so that we can talk about what the switch can do and how it can do it. We're really not going to touch base on the hub again, so if you want to delete the hub out of your lab, you can do that. But moving forward, we're going to use the switch. So I thank you so very much for your time. Really, if you don't mind, click that like and that subscribe button. Definitely appreciate it. And again, just ask any questions if you have them, or if there's any labs you'd like to see. Like if you're having trouble setting up a lab of a certain kind, maybe I can cover it in a future video. Really, really appreciate all your time, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. See you next time.